Right. So I'm starting, let me just read this. I'm starting in 3, 2, 1. Dear panel, what I'm going to give you in my speech is a very concrete example of why we think research as a whole, specifically in the United States, which is like the top part of the world when it comes to novel and important research, will deteriorate in the long term if we take this offer. That's why we think Harvard take this offer. That's why we think, for the sake of the world and research as a whole, it's much better not to take it. Listen, we're going to give you two main impacts. First of all, is why we're going to lose talent and lose the unique place of Harvard, these top Ivy League universities of the world. Why they will lose that critical mass that really produces novelty and newness in the research of the world, and why it will cause a less less cooperation in the entire academic world, which will deteriorate research as a whole. That's the first thing I'm going to give you. Second of all, I'm going to explain to you why it's going to give direct hit to research in different areas, such as artificial intelligence and things that are political, things that are regarding like the state of the US and the world, and why this will deteriorate research practically, which is very bad. So first of all, let me talk about what is important to us in the world when it comes to universities. What do we want from universities? What we want in universities, in particular Harvard, not like any other university, is very good and novel research. That's like the most important thing. Why? First of all, it's important to humankind as it progresses society forward. It allows new innovations, new ideas. It allows to include marginalized groups, to give them better life, to give them better equal rights, to preserve their liberal rights. It gives us a lot of good things when it comes to this. Second of all, it allows for better industry and better cooperation with it, because when you have newness, you get more money, it incentivizes the economy, and it comes particularly from these very top talent Harvard places. Why? Because when you put a lot of very successful people together in the same place, you really amp up. It's very non-linear effect. You get very, very, very good results of research when you put these teams together, okay? Okay, so let me tell you, what do we expect happen if we take that, if we take this offer? Why do we think this will hurt? What happens is that if we take this thing, we agree to terms that limit the freedom of speeches and protests in campus. It jeopardizes the position of researchers in different areas. I'll give you an example. It's not only like very niche topics like gender, it's even in the mainstream media. Let's say I work on artificial intelligence and I want to work with a Chinese company. They could, like the Trump administration could say that working with them under this crackdown is illegitimate, and it's very likely to do. They have the incentive to stop you from working with these Chinese companies because they want to improve they're in a war with China. They want to make the industry in the US stronger. They want to keep the talent within them. If Harvard takes this deal, like what we can get from positions, is they say, no, if Harvard takes the deal, it's fine. There will be other universities, it's not that bad. I'll tell you what happens. If Harvard, which is like one of the top schools in the world, accept these terms, other Ivy Leagues are very likely to accept it, right? And why is that? Because, first of all, it gives a norm of like universities, and it makes, once one school does it, it makes everything much more likely, especially if it's the top school of the world. Second of all, it shows that, because otherwise, if they don't take it, they're in jeopardy of losing their funding even harsher than Oxford did. And then what will happen under this side? If all these, or many of these, not if all these Ivy Leagues take this precedent from the government, it shows the researchers that the independent research they have and the funding is of a question mark. Once the political need arises from the US government, even if Trump goes away in 3 years, if they take it now, it shows them in the long term that it's questionable. That if they want that foreign PhD student, they may not get it. They will, like if you put politics into your research and you tell them what they can do, it cannot make, they don't need to take it. They have other alternatives in different areas, in Europe, in Australia, in different countries, who are willing to pay them a lot of money to put in research. Why is that bad for the world? I'll tell you why. Because the US Ivy League are the top university of the world. They create the most huge startup tech. It's like an overwhelming majority of them. They create the most novelty. They have the strongest industry and the strongest position of US in the world, of liberty and society as a whole. Once you take that away, you put that entire research in tech. Like top talent will remember that for the long run, and it could crumble down on these very strong universities. And they don't need to take it. And listen, what the important part is that 1% of top researchers is what makes the most innovative things in the world. They have the biggest impact, right? They make the innovative things, they present it to the world, everybody follows, right? We see that in many, many cases. The top 1%, let's say in AI, put a model in 2012, now everybody's doing AI and it's changing the world. We're taking this initiative that is very unique to this very special place in Harvard, you lose all of that. Now, second thing is I wanted to explain to why it's going to directly hurt research, all right? When you politicize the academy, you hurt the autonomy. Let's say when you want to research something that puts the United States in very bad position. Even more so, it limits the way you research and the way you interact with it. That just as it is very, very bad. Even more so, it hurts the position of academia as a neutral and quality place. A way that people want to get into academy and want to research and be very novel is because it's perceived as something that is global. Before that, I'll take POI from CO.
Yeah, Oxman is rated higher than Harvard and university. We have great university in Europe in which students wouldn't have to worry about student loans and be able to be successful as well.
Yes, look, there are other universities, but what you do here is, first of all, you hurt research directly in one of the top universities in the world, and why you make a very likely crumbling effect throughout Ivy League. It will hurt this association that is connected to the industry of the US, all right? It will hurt them greatly. Even more so, you make research political. This will have a worldwide impact and retaliation, right? If all the top universities in the US, which is a democratic country, follow the leader, the same will apply to China, right? And a lot of the research will go in that direction. Even though they will have other alternatives in Europe, it won't be of the same quality, and the perception of academia as a whole will attract less people and less successful people because it will be perceived as political and not just to the point of research and novelty, and this will hurt being able to rise through these things. And even more so, okay, I don't have time, so let me reiterate what we're going to get. We're going to get a crumbling effect throughout the top universities of the United States, which will hurt this critical mass of talent that creates the really big initiative and innovative in the world. And without this, we're going to hurt the entire world. For all these reasons, please propose.
Upon the leader of opposition, Rwad, here.
Something clearly audible. Okay. We agree with OGs that Harvard is a wonderful university and is very special. Wouldn't be a shame if they lost half of their funding? This is the simple case coming from OO. First of all, why Trump is likely to try to fuck over Harvard even further if they don't calculate. Second of all, why Harvard is important in the dispersed impact on foreign students. And third of all, why Harvard is very likely to struggle economically on the comparative. Let's start. So what do we have here? What is exactly DEI? DEI means like diversity, inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion. We're not talking mainly about a life-saving research, right? We're talking mainly about political stuff. We're talking about things like globalized the intifada. We're talking about woke shit, like what type of bathroom should each person go to. None of this is life-saving. None of this gets any impact for OG. Meanwhile, all of the budget that we're talking about, that Trump is denying, is universal. Right? It's things like cancer funding research. It's things like funding research for CRISPRs that only Harvard can develop because only they have the size and the power to do things. Just on this own, we already get more impact than OG. But I think that second of all, Trump is likely to try to fuck over Harvard more. Why is that? I think, first of all, Trump has been elected on a platform of anti-DEI. right? He personally believes this bullshit. Trump is a white man coming from the 70s. He's an egomaniac. He has been raised to believe that it's a rich man world and that those all are crazies. This is how he practices his business. But second of all, and maybe more importantly, this has been the Republican platform for years. Like every person in the Republican Party believes that DEI is ruining university for two reasons. First of all, is they believe that they're being denied access to those universities because those universities are teaching things and policing how they're able to talk and what they're able to say and what they're not able to say. But second of all, being that they view universities as the center of cultural Marxism, as the center of the progressives, where progressive brainwash their children and brainwash everyone in society and apply pressure to ruin conservatism and whatnot. I think that this means that they care about this deeply in Trump's base, will pressure him, and all every Republican in Senate, in Congress, will pressure him to continue applying pressure. But second of all, I think Trump hates being defied more than anything. Again, Trump is an egomaniac. He loves doing deals. He loves winning. He loves looking like the strongest person in the room. When you tell him no, he doesn't hear no. He hears hit me harder, daddy. Okay? Trump will try to fuck them over more, being that they have denied him. But second of all, I think he just doesn't want to appear weak in front of other universities and in front of other deals, right? If he capitulates on this, if he stops, if he doesn't fuck them more and makes them agree to his demands, he will lose a lot of his strength and a lot of his position as this strong man that is able to get any deals that he wants. Okay, what do we think Trump does? Lots of one-liners, but I think every one of them has massive impacts. First of all, they will be denied future research grants that could be life-saving, that could be immensely important. Second of all, I think that he will like send ICE into campuses just to fuck over Harvard personally, make the life of students within campuses immensely hard to live. I think third of all, he will like not let them handle their own security. He will tells them, oh, the Marines have to handle your security, or I'm deploying the National Guard. He has done this in California. He will do it again. Third of all, I think he won't hire any of the alumni because he wants to fuck over them even more. And fifth of all, I think that he will start freezing bank accounts, start telling people, oh, don't deal with Harvard, don't deal with them if you want the favor of the federal government. If you deal with them, we won't deal with you. I don't think that it matters if any of this is legal. First of all, because like the damage happened before any federal injunction can be issued, right? Trump acts fast. He acts fiercely. He acts with executive orders. He acts through the executive branch, which just acts and does. So a lot of the damage happens before it can be fixed or can be solved. But second of all, cases take a long time, right? Suing the federal government with their army of lawyers takes a long time. Federal judges love the federal government and want to help it usually. But second of all, the barrier to get an injunction is immensely high. So even if you win the case eventually, you're getting a lot of damage initially. Before I continue, second half.
Trump has shown himself to on a lot of issues, to speak big, to proclaim big things, and then eventually back down when he faces backlash. Why is this different?
I don't think Trump has backed down. He was denied, right? He raised tariffs on China until China agreed to capitulate themselves. He has tried to fuck over Harvard more when they didn't agree initially to this by revoking student visas. But I think, third of all, Trump doesn't necessarily listen to the courts. You saw this in the, how is it called, in the immigration case where he refused to return the person deported to El Salvador to the US. But in fourth of all, Federalist Society has packed the federal courts with conservative judges. Right, this was like Mike Pence's whole agenda, as they have been doing this for years, exactly for this moment. Why I think this is extremely important. I think again, Harvard is a very good place. It gets all of the geniuses in the world into one place where they have all of the connections. I think Harvard has many unique connections that would be lost otherwise. But I think that lots of managerial structures and talent recognition and things like that would be lost without Harvard existing. I think life-saving research into AI, research that could be saving the economy, all of that would be lost without Harvard. I think that third of all, they're a very rich institution. So on the comparatives, they would be able to give lots of scholarships to disadvantaged students, to foreign students, and that is very good. I also think they can't handle this economically. Why is this true? I think that just the extent of money loss is irrecoverable. Right, I think that this means that lots of students now have to find a new place and don't even are not sure of their next year, and therefore don't want to enroll in Harvard because they don't want to screw over their next year. But I think that this is massive amount of money, and university endowments are usually in illiquid assets because they're trying to grow for the future and not for disperse impact. Those are not venture capitalists, and therefore it's hard to liquidate this amount of money. But I think second of all, Harvard is just no longer a safe investment, right? You have a hard time getting loans when the whole fucking federal government is coming on to you, when the federal government is telling banks, don't mess with them because we will mess with you back. And therefore, the amount of money and the fact that you can't recover it, that you can't liquidate fast enough, will screw over Harvard very, very hard, very, very fast, very immense.
Hey, am I audible? I guess so, yeah. Okay. No, give POI anyway you like, I don't care about it. Okay, I'm starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, panel, what I'm going to do in my speech now is basically to expand on what you had already told you and to explain to you what the actual impact is going to be and why this impact is so bad. But first, let's engage with OO and let's talk about the two main rebuttals to their claim. They're basically saying that Trump will crack down on Harvard. It's going to be really, really bad because Harvard is going to lose a lot of money and there are going to be a lot of sanctions on Harvard. Now, let's begin with the sanctions that Trump might put on Harvard. Let's understand here that the US is still a democracy, okay? Trump can do whatever he likes with Harvard. Trump can just freeze bank accounts for Harvard, okay? It's illegal. And I do get the notion that they talk about like the short-term effect, but it's not really, I don't really understand why does the short-term effect actually matters here, because after 1 month, SCOTUS is going to just ban the acts that Trump did. They already did it with lots of other things. So basically, I do not understand why further sanctions that are really, really illegal are actually applicable. But let's talk about the economic sanction. Let's talk about Harvard losing half of their funding. Now they assume here that the part of the funding that comes from private donors is not going to increase, and basically we are going to be left with only 50% of the money. This is completely wrong, because once Trump pulls out the money from Harvard, we're going to get a bunch of liberal rich people who are going to care much about Harvard. They don't want Harvard to fail. They don't want Harvard to surrender to Trump. So they basically, in order to ensure liberalism and progressivism, they are going to they're going to defend, or going to save Harvard. They're going to defend it by increasing spending, by increasing private donations to Harvard. And even people who don't really care about liberalism, about progressivism, Harvard is very important for business in the US. If I'm a rich people and I want good workers and I want talented workers, and I fear that Harvard might, that those workers that usually come from Ivy League are going to, for example, go to Europe, or I'm going to lose them, then I would want Harvard to not to surrender and to succeed. And basically, I would want to save Harvard in the case that they are not being funded by the government. So for this reason, basically, we're going to. There's a strong mitigation here that, I'll take POI later. There's a strong mitigation here that the loss of government funding is going to be heavily compensated, even more than 100%, heavily compensated by private donors who care about liberalism and who care about the existence of Harvard. This is not only true regarding Harvard, by the way. This would be true to all important Ivy League university. People would want to donate them to prevent them from surrendering and to make sure that they still survive. This is regarding the rebuttal that I have. Now let's go to our main claims. First of all, kind of an internal rebuttal. Told us that it's nothing important is going to be cancelled. All the universal research is going to be conserved. I want to talk about 3 things: climate, evolution, and understanding of gender dynamics and social dynamics in our society. All are very, very important for society. I don't have to explain to you why climate research is so important to understand the effect of climate change on us. And it's very likely that Trump is going to ban research on climate because Republicans, and specifically Trump, believe that climate change isn't real, it's all fake. The same goes with understanding of social dynamics of critical race theory and gender theory, which helps which actually affects politicians and help people to understand injustices within society. So these people, these subjects are really, really important. Now, sorry. Okay. Now, let's move to our claims in this regard. First of all, yeah, I want to add here regarding the I would say the chain effect, the positive feedback that like the surrendering of Harvard is going to have on other universities. Let's say that Harvard surrendered to Trump and made a deal with Trump. Now I'm as the leadership of another university. If I'm going to not surrender to Trump and to go against him, that's put me to the left and to the radical side of Harvard, one of the most progressive and woke universities in the US. So people are going to think, wow, they're more radical than Harvard. They're more leftist and more they're more leftist than Harvard. They're much more radical than Harvard. So this is going to be a huge reason for me not to, if Harvard surrender, I would want to surrender as well, because basically I don't want to be conceived much more radical than Harvard and much off the limit than Harvard, or completely crazy because Harvard, the greatest university, did the right thing and I did the wrong thing. Since Harvard is one of the greatest symbols of American academy and one of the greatest symbols of progressivism, I think it's highly unlikely that other people will choose not to surrender when Harvard surrenders. Yeah, POI from closing, if you have one. Then opening.
We are talking about billions of dollars. Which businessman would fork this over just to have to deal with the wrath of Trump? You saw Mark Zuckerberg. You saw what businessmen are doing. They're calculating.
Okay, are you kidding me? Like, there are rich people who are richer than any other government. There are people with a lot of money that they can spend on rights on. We have Bill Gates, we have people, and we're also talking about companies that have a huge interest to support Harvard because it's good for their own public image, and it's good for like better society in general. So I think we do have the money, and let's remember that this is the money only for 4 years until Trump resigns. It's not very likely that Trump is going to resign. It's not very likely that this act is going to stay, because there might be Democratic backlash later. There might be like fluctuations between Democrats and Republicans. So this is only the short term that we are talking about. Now, once all universities surrender to Trump, it means that very important subjects in research, such as I already explained, such as climate, for example, are going to be completely neglected. And these subjects are very, very important to what we do. Now, look, I'll only talk to you about the short term, okay? We talk to you about the long term. We talk to you about a larger effect, because if people, if Harvard surrenders, then they have a public image of someone who surrendered. It's going to stay, and it's going to affect the way they do research, and it's going to affect the incentive of researchers and students to stay in Harvard and in universities, in Ivy League universities in general. So we show you the long-term effect, which is much more important because it affects for longer. They show you the short-term effect, which is only for 3 years. Thank you very much.
Great. Pages. Fine. I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Great. A number of points. First of all, as continuing to on Rwad's point, we think this fucks over foreign students extremely so. Why is that? Essentially, Trump has banned foreign student visas from entering Harvard, right? We are talking about a huge number of researchers who are currently already enrolled into Harvard as just being lost. Those people are, first of all, some of the smartest people in the world who are attending Harvard, yeah, because Harvard is so prestigious, right? And those students are going to be expelled, deported. The entire few years of their life who they've built in America are basically ruined now. They've wasted their time, right? And also, future foreign students won't come because A, they fucking can't, and B, even if it's going to be amended, they'll in like the next Democratic administration, they'll think to themselves that maybe the next administration will change and then fuck me over again. They won't take that risk. We lose a ton of quality researchers from Harvard, right? And we just hurt a lot of people. Those are two very important impacts because it hurts researchers and research. Great. Secondly, a bit of rebuilding about how we hurt climate change research. No, we don't hurt climate change research. Climate change is something that isn't in the administration's demands. You can check the info slide for yourself. We're talking about gender and race critical theories. Climate change is out of this debate for governments, and this exactly explains to you why OG are weighed down on us. We both agree that research is important, but crucially, what research? Yeah. Um, Gender theory doesn't change the world massively. Yeah, it is taught to a very few rich people who aren't the culprits of the discrimination. Yeah, those people aren't racist. They aren't misogynistic. Harvard has no major cultural impact. Yes, they aren't massively sending politicians who went to Harvard. No, it's mostly about the research, the technology, and so forth. Yes, on OG side, on OG's side, they spend more money on that research, which is, as I said, less important. Yes, they spend more money on it because, first of all, those departments are currently massive, or at least very big. From the info slide, we downsize them. And secondly, they just have a lot less money to spend on research because half of their fucking budget is gone. Yes. On our side, comparatively, we're talking to you about technological changes, research, yes, which changes the world massively. We're talking about science, about medicine, how to make it more cheap, more efficient to more people. Harvard has a unique role in technology because it's so famous, because it has so much money, so it can buy more infrastructure, more machinery to create that research. We think that alone means that we both agree on research, but we have better research. Also, on the short term, I think that what we show you is crucial. Why? When you take in a heartbeat half of the money that Harvard has, or the budget that it has, all current research stops, right? The Harvard administration must decide, wait, where do I cut? Or if I cut flat out across the board, then I face, like every single research has to think for itself. Oh, well, what do I do now? Who do I fire? Or which machinery will I buy or won't I buy? We think that just a ton of research stops. And also, a ton of cooperation stops, because now other universities actively are afraid of cooperating with Harvard, because they're afraid to evoke Trump's fury, right? We think that short term, this is fucking crucial because those are people's lives. Yes, we're talking about how it will delay. I care about finding and researching new vaccines or new medicine. It's extremely crucial on the short term, just on like saving lives. Great. Okay, now I'm going to address OO, but before I do that, second half, yes.
We think that if Harvard agrees to this, there will be a widespread and long-term weaponization of the political system against universities, which is a way longer-term impact.
Okay. About the autonomy of the academy, I think that first of all, I don't think that it's a real term and it has any meaningful value. Why is that? We think that it is very justified by the administration to control or to somewhat limit the autonomy of the academy. Yes, notice they half of their funding is by the state. That means that it makes sense that half of the people should have some control over what education goes there and so forth. Secondly, about the political research point that apparently comes from both governments, I honestly think that I can't be political in technology. I can't be political in race or in gender and in those areas. Yes, I can't be political in what kind of cancer will I research. I can be political in if I choose to check discrepancies in blacks, in women, or in other things. Yes, that means that when we downsize and when we downsize those political areas, then of course that we become less political. Great. And about OG's points about hurting freedom of speech, about other universities likely to take the deal. Notice that those universities will agree anyway to take the deal. Why? Because they don't have the budget that Harvard has. They don't have the ability to withstand the sanctions that Trump imposes. It's not about a symbolic gesture standing with Harvard. No, they fucking can't resist it because most of their budget, not only half, is based on the state. And also about even if are at stake the deal, I think it's good because I think DEI is within itself pretty bad. Why? It promotes less qualified people. It lowers the bar for people from worse backgrounds to join over people who are more qualified. Yes, we think that people are going to game the system. People actively game the system in order to get on DEI like sub stories and so forth. Yes, and we think that actively hurts qualified people' ability to actualize. Yes, because it's a zero-sum game. They have less academia spots. We think that for better research and for all those reasons, we beg you to oppose.
Ooh. Okay. Right. Okay. Audible? Great. Going to start in 3, 2, 1. The problem with opening government is that they say we're going to survive the same way. We believe that this is a specific sacrifice that we are allowing. We will have less money, but the harm is just one time, way less important than the abuse for the long term and the influence over the university studies and contribution to society. We believe that just I'll do two things. I'll explain in a better way why in the mitigation of why we will be able to survive even if they're taking a lot of money from us, and secondly why this is just going to be a precedent of huge political changes and influence over the universities all around for the longer term and harm of the universities. Let's start with a rebuttal for that matter. They're saying to us it's going to harm the foreign students because it's symmetrical, because Trump is harming them right now. We believe that one, Trump is just going away in 3 years. We believe that the trust of the foreign students is saved because the university does not allow these things. They're not allowing the students to give up of their principle of saving and not harming the students that are not in a political way stand with the alignment with Trump's administration. We believe there will be a better way to survive because Trump is going away in 3 years. This is really important, and that it is way more likely to have funding right now. Right now, when we have a huge crisis like Oz and what they're saying, if it's only if it's only for 3 years, we will be able to get enough funding for this short term that we all will be harmed. We believe there's going to be a huge wave of left people, rich left people that will be able to help these things and that are against the rules that are harming human life and things like that. Trump is presenting a precedent of money for changing politically. We just are against to accept this deal because it causes a lot of political changes in universities and make them dependent on the political influence that they're infecting on them. Why does accepting the deal would captured for politicians as a precedent? We believe they see themselves as trying to inflict political change to their voter crowded. As a president, as politicians, you're going to see that the existence of this society, of this university dependent on you. They're going to do whatever you say to them if you're trying to take away the money that is helping them to stay and give good bonuses to the people. We believe that one, it really helps you in front of the crowd that voted for you. It's you showing them that the best university, the richest, the most prestigious one, the most strong one, and the richest one is aligned with your political capture. It means that you yourself change their political view and actions. She's doing whatever you say to her. It means that you're the one who changed the political view and sphere in the university. It means that secondly, you're gaining way more political power over the other politicians, that they see you as the one with power and influence, and that you are the one able to affect a lot of people and the education and the view of a lot of people over US and things like that. Why does this would affect in the future? Because it's in the interest of the politicians. We believe that Harvard is the richest university. It's the most prestigious one. It's the most rich one. It means that this is the one that is counted as activist, as independent, as leading in this areas. We believe that less strong universities with less donation, with more vulnerability to these things and more dependent on the political changes, will have to surrender to these things. And when there's a big crowd of universities, you will be able to make a political change way better. It means that you will be able, as a politician, to influence way better. How does this affect political control? We believe that that when you are influenced directly with a punishment, you will be having a total control over what's going on. It's going to show that the university surrenders to you. We believe that there is still today some political influence, but we don't believe that influence through money would be a good influence, because we want to have it like to have a way to change this things in a more dynamic way, when there's when people are talking about the big ideas that they're preventing or allowing and like advancing in a way. We believe that it will harm a lot. I'll get to the harms and the framing and the weighing. I'll take first.
CG analyzed why politicians make those threats either way, as other universities did take the deal, and that threats cause nothing but do make you appear strong.
Exactly. We want them to only make threats and not having the political change that they want. They won't have the power that they can abuse these threats and make the political change that they have. If they see that it doesn't affect anyone and people still survive and people won't surrender to them, there will be no political change and there will be no dependent of the university. The impacts for these things is just changing constantly, more and more. When politicians are more likely to threaten different universities and different policies, it means that policies are changing all the time. Departments are closing all the time because they're dependent on the financial stability of these places. That means that people are just not feeling stable financially when they're going to work and to the university and keep studying for these things. It means that people won't enact on these manners because they are threatened politically, because they're like dependent on the university. We believe this harms the continuation of studying of different subjects, of taboo of subjects, with no creativity, with no other thoughts about these things. When it's constant, the change is constant, it harms more and more for a longer time, for bigger changes, all there are. When OO are trying to go all in about that there will no be able to have any recovery from these things, we just think that this is just a huge, bigger impact all over the global sphere on these manners. We believe that when we're in a global situation of the world, when we have a lot of support for the most prestigious university, we will be able to survive only 3 years, and the harms won't corrupt us. For all these reasons, glad to propose.
Okay, 1 second. Politics is I'll explain one thing only. Why agreeing to Trump demand is actually a great thing for the university and the country, as current politics are terrible for higher education. Firstly, let's start with some rebuttals to a second government. They said that we can survive with less money. Money is needed for every single thing, for buying every single school, for giving salary to everyone. We cannot survive without it, even for a few years. It will harm us. Secondly, they said this will be a complete change. It will harm the university if we agreed. We have agreed, for example, to allow black students at university in the 1960s after being pressured to it, and we stuck to it because sometimes change is a good thing. We need to realize what is better for us, what is better for the university. There is the reason there's so much pressure on us to stop those DI stupid politics which harms us very much. Thank you. Okay. Firstly, DI is just bad. All these protests are terrible. Those far-left professors are a danger, and politics should be left out of campuses other than the debate club. So let's start this. If Harvard were to agree on this contract, we would stop all these things in Harvard University and also in different Ivy Leagues around the country. As first government agreed, they are all affected by Harvard very much and very likely to also agree to Trump demands if Harvard also agrees. So firstly, let's actually start with defining DOI. It means giving priority not for those who are more qualified, but for those who are coming from a specific background. It doesn't mean they're poorer or just a harder type. Yeah, what it means the skin is different. Something about the religion is different. What it means in effect is that people of color and others are in this have a higher chance of getting into university even above other students who still had those hard life circumstances. It means that some people have a disadvantage. They can study more, get higher grades, and still cannot get to the same school as the other person. Let's talk about what it actually means that one guy is not accepted to Harvard, but the other one is. Okay, let's talk about this white dude. What it means for him? It means that he has studied 4 years but didn't get it. It means it will cause him to be much more depressed, to think about himself. Why? Why can I not do it? I was very talented, was very good, but still cannot get into Harvard. Also, it just means for him that he's losing hope on trying to get into other Ivy Leagues because he cannot do it. But he sees that other people who are similar to him but have something different, for example, a race or gender, are still managed to get into Harvard, which makes him question himself. Which means we have just lost one bright young man from getting into academia and learning and studying and actually helping the world, which is what government always told us, that this will harm our higher education. How it hurts science. Let's talk about it. We said firstly, those white dudes would not get into actual science, into university or into another high-level university, which means we won't get to enjoy from his brain, and we also get to enjoy from the brains of those who are less smart, who are less good in what they do, but they got into these places because of who they were, not because of the rank, but because of who they were. So, yeah. Yeah, and also, who is harmed by those who get in? For example, we see that when we are accepting a lot of women into the university, those who are harmed most are actually black men because they're at the top. They are about to get in, but then you have a priority for women. So we see that when we actually help one kind of minority, we actually hurt another kind of minority, which is not what we wanted at all. Okay. So instead of helping people in the long term by finding solution for poor people, or for example giving free school for those who cannot afford it, not by the color of their skin, it just creates more divide. So DI looks inclusively, but actually good for some groups and help others. Firstly, it helps Muslims, we just talked about how terrible they have it. Yeah, it helps also people. It helps Muslims very much, but it actually harms other people. Like for example, Jews or women, Jews and black men a lot of times, like we said, because they cannot get into university. Okay, it makes higher study look more like a joke, as much as we said. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's talk about those anti-Semitic protests, which we also know most of are actually not students, which we actually saw by the statistic. What these protests do? Firstly, they harm reputation very much. It means that less people go to Harvard, less people go to university in general. It destroys also valuable things. Those people a lot of time destroy the university property, the books in the university. We saw that the library is being completely destroyed by these protests. Yeah, it creates also more anti-Semitism against the Jewish student. The president of Harvard cannot calling for Jewish killing an illegal thing to do. Burning the US and Israeli flag by the students of there, it becomes legitimate because it's part of what they want to do. It's part of DI, it's part of their free speech. Their free speech actually had the free speech of the Jewish student, of the other students that are also there. Okay, let's talk about how these far left, for example, professors who fuel this movement and have an interest in burning Harvard and harming the country. They are against America, they are supporting Hamas, a fucking terror organization. But we support them in the name of the AI, in the name of hiring other people, in the name of support to other organizations. And when we become so fine with supporting an organization and supporting other people, we actually support terrorist groups which actually do more harm than good and do more for dictatorship than for democracy. I'll take PY from first.
Yes, regarding the international student, it's several hundreds of international students in the short term that we're going to lose against like the loss of prestige and neutrality.
Yes,
and
let's
becoming
talk
a
about
brand
actually
that
exactly
would-
this. I have something made the completely. After you talked about doing research with a Chinese university, I just want to talk about you, China. Yeah? Those who stole secrets from the International Space Station, they stole about the F-22 from the US. They stole a lot of stuff from NASA. Those students who a lot of times paid by China to actually come to US to steal the secrets. Also, a lot of you have TikTok in your phone, which is a spyware. We have Huawei, which is also a spyware. China is doing everything it can to harm and to harm the US. And it's not only China, it's Russia, it's Syria, it's Hamas, and all those organizations are actually being legitimized and look like they're better from the US in those campuses because that's what happened where you are allowing everyone to get into campuses, those who are not smart enough to go into campuses, those who are not democratic, those who do not support actual free speech. Those are the people we are actually getting currently. And you ask yourself, why does academia look like a joke? Why are there no high valuable students who go to Harvard? And this is the reason. And this is how we can stop this by actually bringing some reason for it. Yeah. Like I said, it politics here in university. It harms those who think differently. It has a politicization of science. Also, a lot of studies are being made specifically, for example, for vegans and all those kind of stuff, without actually looking at what is the health benefits. For example, Harvard Nutrition School is being funded by food companies who want us to go vegan because this is what they believe in. This is their ideology. They have no other place for actually thinking rational. Thank you very much.
Is the panel ready? Nice. I will start. In 3, תגיד חזק. יותר רחוק. מרגיש לי ששומעים אותי. Okay, I will start. In 3, 2, 1. What do we do in this thing? We present you something that is, our case is not only that it is bad that Trump denies money to universities, or it is bad that the foreign students get to go away because they now think they are in danger. We think that both of these will happen way more if politicians get the impression that they can do this to great success. We think that right now politicians don't have the interest to do this. Like a lot of things, the American political system is built on a precedent. Davidi has already told you this. Now, Davidi has already told you this. We think that this is a unique impact that extends the impact of OO about losing funds, and that extends the impact of OG about fears. And this is why. Let me now clarify our impacts, which I can do as a whip. We think that there is a lot bigger of an impact because of a couple of things. First of all, you need stability is the most important thing for research. This is a weighing about the research clash. We think that more than getting the funding right now, stability is important because this is how institutions plan ahead. We think that when institutions give out grants, when these universities decide how to act in the how to act when giving out research, when bringing in students, it is very important to them. Secondly, we think that it is important to the researchers. If I'm going to an Ivy League school, I'm thinking, how is my research, which I want and want to go well, going to be affected in this university? If I'm concerned that every few years a new politician comes and wants to bend the system to his will and thinks he can do it, I get very nervous, and this is when I go to a different school. We think that this is not we don't, our burden is not to prove to you that politicians will actually be able to change it every 4 years. We think that Yuval has analyzed to you why it seems very appealing to politicians, and this is why they at least try, which means harm to universities, exactly like O already tells you, that they get less funding, that they get less, that their students are deported, that more things and so on. Okay, we think um, another another impact to this that is just making the impacts of davidi bigger is we think that there will be a positive feedback loop. We think that because when Trump does this, the left get the right gets more the right gets more ambitious about what they can do with the policies they want, and the left get more ambitious as well as the right, and we think we get more of this over time. Okay, let's now answer CO in brief. We think that one, woke is not defined. I don't know why woke is actually something that why woke is killing the university, especially because the rest of the room agrees with us that the most important impact is about research, which is not that the fields in which wokeness is prevalent. We think that even if you hire someone that is Muslim, first of all, if he got into Harvard, he's smart anyway. And secondly, we think that because this is a big and rich school, even if he's a bit less smart than the bright white guy, he gets more smart by being in Harvard. We think that these institutions make the smart people and not just take the smart people and throw them into a blender with each other. So this is why I don't really care about maybe the one or two white guys. Okay, more than this, I'm not sure why they think that it is better that it is necessary to do this against people who have done illegal things. We think that if students do illegal things, it's the job of the police to punish them. Now let's wait about top half. First of all, let's answer OO's point about it's legitimate to enforce political will because we pay them. Oh, you can't have it both ways. We prove to you that there is harm to the research, and if you say research is important to us, you can tell me that also we need to change it, and this is also important to us because we've shown you that what is most important gets hurt. We think, we have shown you that there are many ways to survive for a few years and make this point and make it clear to politicians that now they won't exploit this. First of all, there is a lot of money that tell us need to be used for long term, but can be used now a little bit to survive and make a bigger impact in the future. You think this is better? Let's take POI from first.
In both sides, politicians influence universities using donations and budgets, but crucially, on Gov side, more influence is given to personal donors with personal interests instead.
Yes, I understand. This isn't our extension. We think that uniquely what Trump is doing is giving the big impacts that you talked about. What we're doing is explaining that now politicians will view this as a good and effective tool and will use it against universities more often. So all of the impacts that you tell us about how research is stopped exist in our side, even if most politicians are not so grand like Trump. And we think most politicians just like adjust to the environment they're in. They don't have real ideas. So if they see so if they see that something works, they'll do it. But we think that even if not everyone is like Trump, we think they still will threaten, they still will push back a little if they do, even if not all the way. And this will cause a major harm, and this will still cause major harm because of stability. And what Davidi told you, that stability is so important. We are above our first half because our first half missed this point, and we get much more of an impact to much longer term. We think that their impact is maybe for a couple years after the 3 years, but ours is for a long, long time. CG.
I thank the government whip for his wonderful speech, and to continue this debate and to conclude this debate, I'm going to call upon the opposition whip. Here, here.
Can you hear me? Okay, I can see the chat, so I can see PYs, but uh, just don't interrupt me. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in three, two, one. I'm gonna go by groups and tell you why we're above them. But first of all, two outside things. Number one, this debate suffers from impact because all of the teams agree that in 4 years everything will be gone, and after Trump, then most of the impacts will go away. Why are we specific on this point? We think that first of all, activists will stop coming to Harvard, will stop, I don't know, being activists in Harvard during this time. And we think that also after these 4 years, once there is no activism, no protests, no whatever, no pushing an agenda, then things will naturally change. But if you don't buy it, let's talk about our actual impacts. So three things. Number one, on DOI, fair acceptance. I don't have to say more about it. But number two, what closing government misses, we're talking about politics in general in universities. We're talking about protests hurting students that don't agree with them. We're talking about Jews suffering on campuses. We're talking about preventing smart people from coming to the university because of politics. We're talking about biased professors hurting students thinking and independent thinking. We think that their activism on campuses forces an opinion on people, and mainly because of threats of the other side, but also just activism. And so that's our impact. Let's start with opening government. So opening government tells us a lot about research, blah, blah, blah. What are their impacts? First of all, they're telling us that um, they're trying to tell us climate change. They're trying to tell us the research with China. We think that's not in the motion, but they're telling us race theory and understanding it. We're telling you that it's bad. We're telling you that we're not understanding why is it important. So we think they have zero impact, and we think all of their impacts can come from Europe and, I don't know, researching alongside Harvard, and we think that it will be gone after Trump, and so all of their points just don't make any sense in any way because they're alternatives, or they're just not that relevant. But also, if you're getting those impacts, we're telling you about impacts on students directly that Harvard allows, and why students are hurt, why their opinion is compromised, and so we think those impacts are already above opening government. Let's talk about closing government. What is their case? They're telling us now politicians have precedent. They can act or whatever. So first of all, we think that Trump is unique. Yes, they tried to say something about it, but we think, yes, Trump is unique. We think he's the only one that's willing to go that far. We think that no other president has the balls to go that far, to push the limits that far. And we think that universities are willing to surrender to Trump. We think that they're not willing to surrender to anyone. And so we're not understanding why this creates a precedent. But also, if it does, already opening opposition tells them in a POI that voters should impact what's going on in universities. We don't think that donors should impact what happens in universities or what's the agenda that's being pushed there. We think that voters that voted for a certain government are the ones that should make these changes. And we think those changes in universities that Trump is trying to do in Harvard are good, like my partner told you. We think that they will happen only through force, and they're good, I don't know, for a greater society. Because yes, Harvard are a bunch of intellectuals that are separated from the people, and we think that they're pushing an agenda that the voters do not want. And so we think that Harvard as a university that's, I don't know, promoting things like government, like everyone try to say, and doing major stuff in the world, we think that they should be they should be influenced mainly by voters. Yes, opening.
Yes. We actually showed you why we're going to lose the top talent in the Ivy League universities of the United States for the long term, which will hurt the entire world with novel and new research. You don't respond to that at all.
But you didn't explain why this is the top talent. You're telling us that some talent will be gone. You're not explaining why this is the top talent, and we're also not understanding why they can't research in Europe and work alongside Harvard. We don't get this entire. We will lose the foreign student or whatever that are the smartest, the biggest, the best. We think that everyone has a I don't know, has someone that can take his place, and especially with DEI, we think that your students are actively taking places from better people that are more qualified. Why are we above opening opposition? So, opening opposition talks a lot about money, how this will affect the Harvard and whatever. So we think two things. Number one, short term, yes, with they're being attacked, and we're also telling you that this money is for the short term. Other presidents won't do it because they can't do it, and so we think that this impact is not that big. Second of all, they're being attacked by both governments about money getting from different places, and we're agreeing with governments that some money will come from different places. So what we show you above opening opposition, we're showing you why Harvard's action and what they're allowing are actively bad. They're actively hurting students, and they need to be stopped. They need to stop promoting politics wherever, whatever. And so we think we're showing you a more immediate thing that needs to be stopped by agreeing to this deal, whatever. Thank you.